we come before you this Sabbath morning just thankful for life, thankful for the Sabbath and the blessing that it is, and thankful that we can come together here and worship you. And I ask that you bless this time as I'm sharing about the experience that you gave me in Cuba, and I hope that other people are blessed in a small way like you blessed me there. I ask this in your name, amen. So many of you know that I went to Cuba in May, a couple weeks ago, the end of May. I was there for 10 days, and they asked me to share about my trip, so that's what I'm going to do this morning. We had to leave. We met at the village market. We left, our group left there at 1:30 in the morning, so it was a very long day of traveling. We got to Atlanta, and it was rush. Barely made it to our flight because of delays, checking in, security. There was an accident that we ran into on our way to Atlanta. So there was a lot of delays, but we made each flight, barely, but we made each flight, and we finally arrived in Cuba. It's not very far from here. We got there at around 1 in the afternoon, and this was a Friday afternoon. So we arrived, and we were taken to the seminary there, where they fed us lunch. So this is my first meal in Cuba, and I have to be honest, I did not like the food. This stuff here is eggplant and okra, and I don't really like either of those things, so that was not my favorite. And this is a cabbage and radish salad. So they're experiencing a food shortage there, while we were there at least. I don't know if they still are, but probably. And so...
Do you know that their imports are severely restricted?
Yes. And so we were thankful for what we had, even though we didn't particularly love it. We're like, okay, we hadn't really eaten much, so it was a long day. So we ate it all. We all cleared our plates. But my friend and I were like, this is gonna be a long trip. But we were very wrong. The food was amazing later. But we divided up into 3 groups. So I went with a group from Eastridge, the youth class from Eastridge. There's about 20 of us that went. And once we arrived there, we divided up into 3 other groups that were going to go out across Cuba to different locations for the 10 days doing the campaign, the evangelistic series and the vacation Bible school in the evening for the children. So in my group there was 6 of us from America, and so this is the state where Havana is, where we landed, and one group went west here, and then the other 2 groups went this way over to east. So I was in central Cuba. This is near where I was. So it was about another 5-6 hours, and then the 3rd group was even further than us. But we divided up from the seminary and went out, and so we didn't get to La Sierpe, which is where my group went, till about 10:30 at night. So yeah, long day. I don't know why that picture is so small. Okay, so there were 6 of us from America, and then there was the pastor's family. That was a family of 5, which they were doing the cooking for us, and we were staying in their house. And then there was another Bible worker family that was staying there as well, a family of 3, and then we also had 2 translators. So there was a large number of us in a small house. So this is our American team. This is the adults that I went with and their son, Evan. And then, so there was 4 of us teenagers in my group. This is the pastor and his wife. And this is one of our translators, Rachiel, here. So, yeah, we all became really close because everyone except for Katie and I could speak Spanish fluently, and Katie and I could understand enough, and so we all got to communicate, and we got really close, living in the same house, working together. So it was a neat bond that God gave us. This is the house that we were in. And it's pretty small, but it's not as small as it looks because it's long and narrow. So it was big enough. One bathroom though, so that was a real fun experience. Lots of lines getting ready in the evening for the meetings, everyone going to shower. We would run out of water, we would lose electricity, but God always provided. We never lost electricity during the meetings, so our projectors always worked, our sound system always worked, so that was a blessing. We would lose electricity during meal times often, but thankfully God blessed during the meetings. The house was flat roof, so we could, go up on the roof, and there was a nice mango tree. It was mango season, prime season when we were there, so that was nice. And this is the view from the top of the house. And this is down the street from where the house we were staying in. So all the roads are dirt. We're in the country here. So this is some of the scenery from around the parts where we are. They had these adorable little houses, and they didn't have much, but their houses were always very neat and orderly and well taken care of. This is our other translator here, and this is the daughter of the Bible worker. So yeah, this just shows more of our team here, and yeah, so you have an idea. You see some of the scenery. It was a beautiful place. I don't know why they're so small. Okay, so a day in La Sierpe would start for us around 7 o'clock in the morning, if not earlier, because there was chickens and pigs in the backyard of the neighbors' houses that were right next to us, and so yes, we would wake up to that often earlier than 7 o'clock, and the cooks would be up and bustling about the house, preparing us breakfast and stuff early too. So we would wake up to noises, getting the day started and stuff like that. We would have personal devotions, and then we would, get ready for our day. This is my bed, and mosquito nets. Those were very challenging to keep up. We had brought like those sticky hooks that you can put on the wall, but those would wear off because of the humidity. And so then we had string, so we would try to there's two other beds in my room here. There's one next to me and then one at the foot. And so we would all try to tie up our mosquito nets, try something that we could tie them to, and we would have a spider web of string at night. We would just hope we wouldn't get up and hurt ourselves. We often would wake up with them have collapsed on us, but it was fun. And yeah, so then we would have breakfast all together. And breakfast was usually a lot of fresh fruit, bread, fresh fruit juices, mango juice, pineapple juice. We had guava, papaya, breads. We had some peanut stuff, like little peanut bars that were good. Every breakfast was basically the same, It would vary in what fruit and how much fruit of different types, but it was the same basic idea, and it was delicious. We loved it. So this is the back porch of the house, and then you can see past here is the church building actually that we had. Other locations did not have a separate building, so all the meetings were held in the house because you can't have churches in Cuba because of the government and stuff. So but this property that they purchased had a building in the back already, so they've turned that into like a church. So it's nice that we have not everything in the house, and we had the children's meetings on the back porch there, so it was easier to cram them in because they would come, a lot of them, you'll see. But yes, the other locations just had everything in the house. The adult meetings in the house, the children's meetings, in one room, and the adult in the other. And so we were thankful that we had a nice setup. So we would go out there after breakfast, and our whole group, we would have a worship together, like a family worship, and we would discuss what our plans were for the day. We would often do visitations in the morning, and we would we would divide up into different groups. And some of the groups would stay in La Sierpe and go door to door, inviting people to the meetings, interacting with them. If they had answered to an altar call or something, we would go, make sure to visit them, follow up on that. And then other groups would go to the other towns that were, not too far away, like 20, 30 minutes away. We would go and we would invite them as well, because we weren't in a big city, so we wanted to, reach out to other people around. And so that was fun. We would do that all morning long. We would have group prayer too, every morning before we would go out in our groups, and we prayed a lot, and we saw God answer a lot of our prayers, and that was encouraging for everyone, but especially for me personally in my personal walk, because I've done mission trips before, but I think when you're here, life is just so different in the pace and everything, and we can do a lot on our own. We can, and we don't have to rely on God as much, we don't think. And so to be relying on Him more for basic things and to see Him come through was a real encouragement. So we would walk. We would try to find catch a bus or something going out to the different towns around. But if we couldn't, we would just start walking. And there's bus stops every so often, so we would walk to the next one and then wait for a few minutes and walk. The houses are all like in the town in La Sierpe, the bigger town that we were in. The houses were like duplexes like this. Like this is one house and this is the other house, and they're just really narrow and long. You can see inside it's just really long and narrow. But yeah, they were spotless. They were very clean, very neat. And the people were very friendly. Like, even if they weren't interested in the tracks or, coming to the meetings, they were very hospitable, wanted to have us in, wanted to welcome us, wanted to visit with us. And so that was nice too, because you don't find that here in America. Going door to door, if people aren't interested, then they're not interested. So, but that was a difference that I noticed. And so, yeah, the people were really great and fun to interact with. So we did a lot of visitations. They invited us in. There were many modes of transportation. This is a horse cart that I got to ride on, and there was old cars that we got to take. Dump trucks, we would ride in the back of a dump truck. Whatever came along that was heading our direction, if they would stop and take us, we would happily get a ride. This was probably my favorite way to travel though, because it's all open, you could get great pictures, and yeah, it was fun. And then this is a bus that we took as well, and yeah, it sounded like it was going to fall apart, just like it looks like it might fall apart. Those roads are very bumpy, and when we were riding in it, I was like, the whole thing was just going to shake apart. It was pretty loud. And there's just like bolted down plastic chairs in here, you can see. And then there's handles, and it would fill up, and we were thankful that we didn't have to walk. So yeah, this is the bus stops that they had, every so often, and sometimes they'd be filled with people, packed. Other times there would just be a couple people waiting. We missed our bus once that was going back, and so we had to sit there for nearly 2 hours, and we almost missed lunch, but thankfully we got back and we're still able to eat. This is La Palma, which was one of the towns not too far from La Sierpe where we were. So this is it was a really pretty farming community. This building here, you can see, has no roof, no windows, no doors. The inn down here is a school, but this part people lived in. And I was really shocked about that. Because there's nothing to protect them from the elements, the weather. The other, further down, you can see more. The other end did have a roof. So this is the inside of someone's house that did have roofing on it. But it was just one open room, and they had all their stuff in there. And, yeah. The cattle, everything was very very skinny. You can see the ribs on on this horse. And yeah, horses were what a lot of farming families had. They didn't have cars, they just had their horses, and so that was how they did everything and traveled and everything. So we would just go, this is a milk cart, going door to door in the community, selling milk. And this is us doing visitations. We would, yes?
When we were in Romania, there was a horse cart that stopped at a gas station.
Oh.
And I took a picture of that. I was so funny, and the folks were looking at me mean, so I left quickly. But
yeah.
You think I wanted that?
Yes. We would take pictures of a lot of things, and yeah, the other Cubans that were there, they did laugh at us a lot. But we wanted pictures. It was something we didn't see. So we ran into a lot of things during visitations. This is someone's exercise, like weightlifting bar. I got to hold a parrot. We got to witness heartfelt discussions, and this young man, he was actually visiting him because he had requested baptism, and he was baptized on the last Sabbath that we were there. We got to interact with kids. You know, they love the camera, getting their pictures taken, and we really got to experience, you know, how contagious the joy of service and sharing Christ is, and that was fun. So we would come back after visitations and we would have lunch. Yeah, and like you can see our laundry, it was done outside and hung outside, and I thought that looked cool. It was always so nice. And yeah, we would prepare for lunch. We would eat lunch as a group. We would all come together. And then the food here was amazing. We loved every single meal. I mean, it was like a feast. And we were not expecting that. It was really good food. We had amazing cooks. Yeah. They even made us pasta. We had brought noodles and stuff, and they made us pasta, and we got to share that with them, and so that was fun because, you know, they don't get stuff like that. And then in the afternoon, we would interact with the kids. The kids would get out of school. Well, first, we would have a siesta. And everyone comes home from school, they have lunch, it's a 2-hour break, and then everyone takes a nap. And it's really nice. And then you go back to school for a little bit in the afternoon. So then after the kids would be done with school for the day, they would come over and we would play. Or we would go to the park and play with them, you know, soccer or basketball. Here, I'm going to skip those for the sake of time. We played basketball with them. We played with a soccer ball that we had brought. So that was a new experience, but it was very fun. And yes, very warm. Then we would have supper, and we would get ready for the evening meetings. And people would start arriving for the evening meetings about, you know, nearly an hour before they would start. And they would pack in to the church. These two kids we got really close with. They lived right there in La Sierpe, and they would visit us all the time. As soon as they were done with school, they would be at the house, just wanting to be around us. You know, we would be doing things, preparing for our sermons. You know, they just wanted to be with us, and we played with them every day. And it was really special to get to know them. It was hard to leave. This is the 4 of us. And then this is preaching. You know, we would have a health talk, and then we would have the sermon, and we would take turns preaching. So I preached twice for the adults, and then if I wasn't with the adults, I would be helping with the children. You know, song service, crafts. You know, making sure they were listening, being quiet, and just doing all kinds of things. You know, we had up to 50 children, so to keep them all listening, it wasn't as hard as you would think. They were very engaged, but it still, you know, sometimes they would arrive a bunch more than we had expected, and so we'd have to quickly make up, you know, more crafts and try to stretch our supplies, but God always blessed. And the Delgados are very musically talented, and we were able to put appeal song with each of the sermon appeals, and I think that made it more touching, more personal, And so I helped with that, and that was special to, get ready every day. And we would pray. We wouldn't even know what song. Like, we would ask what this talk was about, what the appeal was. We wouldn't know what song, and we would pray. Someone would have an idea, and we would find it, oh, the song's in Spanish, and we would just practice it, and it would come together. And that was neat to see God bringing just, everything together to tie it in. So we would help with the song services for the children. And here's a bunch of kids. They're doing their crafts there on the porch. And then everyone would just congregate after the meeting and just stay and visit, chat, and then they would trickle off. The meeting started at 8:30. People would finally probably be gone about 11. And they wanted pictures and visited with us. And these two young men, we also got close with them. They were always with the other two little kids. One of them is brother and sister. And so the four of us American teenagers, and then them, the four of them teenagers, we all did a lot together. We saw a lot of bugs. This is a bad picture, but you can see that his eyes glow like a lightning bug, but his eyes just glow. I was like, whoa, what's that? There was a lot of creatures. That was probably a big challenge, especially for my friend. But there was all these beetles, especially at night, and then I don't know, some big katydid grasshopper thing. Not exactly sure. Can't really. This is like a moss right here. And a gecko. Yeah, they're giant frogs in our bedrooms. That was not fun. But whoa. God provided. God did a lot of amazing things there, and I'll share one story in particular. On Monday night, it had rained in the afternoon, like right before the meeting, about 7. Poured really, really hard. And so because all the roads are dirt, like you've seen, it was going to make traveling difficult because it was all mud now. And it had rained other days, but it always rained early enough in the afternoon that it would be all dry out before people came. So Katie and I were sitting there. At 8:30, there was hardly anyone in the church. I mean, usually it was packed by 8:30. There's only a handful of people there, only a handful of children outside. And we prayed, and we asked, we thought we should pray that people would come. So we prayed, both of us. And we specifically asked that it was God's will, that people the church would be filled by the time the person got up to speak. So we prayed during the health talk, and so it was about probably 15 minutes till the sermon started. By the time the sermon started, the church was filled, and that was a huge blessing. People had been able to come. Maybe God encouraged them. Maybe God opened up a way for them to come, transportation, despite the inconvenience and difficulty. So you can see leaving that it was full after only there being a handful of people. So that was a blessing. Many people requested baptism. I believe like 15 children and maybe close to 25 adults. Not all of them were ready for baptism on that last Sabbath that we were there, but the Bible worker is continuing to work with their families, with them, study with them. So hopefully in a couple months they can have another baptism. But there were several that were ready, and this girl's mom was one of them. And we were really excited because she had been coming to the church for a long time. Probably I think close to 6 months. And then this campaign happened, and so she was ready for baptism. But on the last day, on Sabbath morning, she wasn't able to come because her husband wouldn't let her come to be baptized. And so that was disappointing. We felt like that was an attack from the devil, but we continued to pray for her that, God will work on her husband's heart, and that, even though she wasn't able to take the step of baptism and, be baptized, that she can, will still follow the conviction that she had. And that you don't have to be baptized, right at one time, to live a godly Christian life, according to what you've been convicted of. So we continue to pray for her. This girl brought many friends. She got a Bible because she brought the most kids one night. She brought, I think, 24 kids. The kids would come without adults too. They would just travel by themselves and come in groups. They would just hear about it, word of mouth, and come. And so we had anywhere from 5 to 53 kids, and it would vary. And they would just come by themselves, and they were so much fun. They were little rays of sunshine, and it was a real blessing to work with them. This is probably one of our biggest evenings. They would say their memory verses. We would quiz them on the memory verses from the previous nights, and then we would learn a new one every night. And they absorbed it. They would know them and retain them. And this was the neighbor's dog. I don't know why this picture is in here. I was trying to move it around earlier, and then but it was the neighbor's dog, and it was a really cute puppy. And then the last Sabbath, we had our baptisms. This is the young man that was being studied with earlier. He was baptized, and this young lady was baptized, and this young lady had been struggling with the decision apparently all week, and it was a huge step that she took because she's 13, and no one else in her family was Adventist, Christian, even attending the church at all. And so she took a huge step. She gave up jewelry, which everyone, if they're not Adventist, wears jewelry over there in Cuba. She gave up jewelry, she gave up pork, and she's, taking a huge step. And we pray that God, will keep her strong. She's going to face a lot of hardships, especially, that God will use her to be a light in her family, and that God would keep her strong in the conviction that she had. She was a really sweet, a little shy young girl, but she was dedicated, and you could see that, and it was so special to get to witness their baptism and his as well, because we had known him and gotten to know him all week, and it was really special to get to see him, take that next step, and I'm able to stay in touch with them through email and stuff, and I just pray for them that God keeps them strong, especially the small group that he has there, that it would grow, but that these young people would not, fall back into old patterns, old habits, or the temptations that are all around them. And I could share a lot more, but it's probably time for me to end. But God did amazing things there, and I think watching him work on other people's lives, in other people's hearts, using me in spite of myself. I didn't feel like I had any talents, but I'd get up there and speak. I would prepare the sermons, praying. We prayed so much, and God would help me make it personal, help me change things. I was like, okay, I'm going to say this way, and then I would get up there and it would come out a different way, and I would be it would all be God. And every one of those experiences is what really touched me, and I've come home with a renewed fire and a renewed dedication that I hope I can keep going and doesn't die here. So I hope that you all have been blessed. I'm thankful for this time that I was able to share, and I thank you all for making it, the parts that you each played, making it possible for me to go there and being a blessing to the people of Cuba. And I believe Mr. Traer is leading Sabbath school. I'm not exactly sure. Are you doing Sabbath school? Okay.
Good morning. Happy Sabbath. Do we have any mics or okay? I've known Lilyann, who just spoke just now, from the time she was like 2 years old, and very cute as a button, and to see her grow into a lovely young lady and on fire for the mission. I mean, who would have thunk, you know, from a few years back to the woman she's turned in, the young woman she's being turned into. And it's a blessing to see how God is working in the lives of our young people. And so, anyway, our lesson today is on... Anybody have a chance to look at the lesson? Or are you just trying to catch up right now? Our lesson is, what have they seen in your house? That means when people come to your home, what do they see? But anyway, before we begin, let's bow our heads for prayer. Heavenly Father, I just thank you and praise you. Thank you for being the God that you are, the wise and loving parent that wants the good in his children. And Father, these lessons have been a challenge to us, and as we invite your presence here, that you would guide us and in our discussion, and maybe stir our spirits and challenge us in the walk you want us to live our lives. We thank you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm looking for 2 or 3 volunteers who would be willing just to share a snippet of a day this week in their life. If not, I'll have to pick 3. Okay, we got a hand here. I just wanted to know, like, what? Okay, just go share a day in the life of your life this week.
Well, it's this morning. Last night, big storm in Grindstone, where I live, and trees fell over all kinds of cars and carports, and they were out there cutting the limbs off the wires so we could get our electricity back. And I took a walk because it's very quiet. It's a nice time, even though it's all this damage. It's a good time to go out when it's quiet on the Sabbath. And there, a man was driving away from his home, and he asked me, "Do you have any candles? Do you have any potable water? All this stuff?" And I was like, "I don't think we have any candles." And I wasn't that worried. And I said, "Yeah, I have a filter in my house, so I have plenty of water, because I just filled it up the night before." And he's like, "What's your name?" He said, "I'm Eric." And it's like, "Okay, do you know what's going on? This is a crazy world that's going on." And I was like, "Wow, this is a great opportunity now to witness to him." And he's like, he's from Venezuela. And imagine, what's going on there. In his mind, this world is really crazy, right? So I'm like, wow, Lord, you sent me to this spot at the right time this morning. And my rest of my week was normal. I teach classes in the morning. I teach my children homeschool in the afternoon. My children found a really cool alligator snapping turtle, baby one. So they're going to grow that for a pet. But anyway, it was very interesting that you have nothing going on, and finally the Lord said, "Okay, this is the time that it's a good time for this person to maybe get to know you. So pray for this."
Okay, keep the mic there. I want to ask a few questions from you. Yeah. Okay, you said so. You homeschool your children.
Yes.
And okay, well, give me a typical day, just one day in a week. What I mean, what do you have to prepare? What are the challenges you face, and what's your focus?
Well, another answer to prayer, my sister-in-law and I have never really gotten along well, just to be honest. But recently she's made some drastic changes. Maybe I have too, I don't know. But my children, she's the educator, and my children don't have me or my wife around in the mornings because we're teaching online to Chinese students English. So my children have to get up, make their own breakfast, do all their own stuff. And it was great this week or last week. She's living South Korea, and she's able to teach them from South Korea online. It's really strange. They're teaching our kids from across the sea, and we're teaching their kids from across the sea. But it worked out really nicely. They're getting along with my children very nicely. And so after about 10:30, then we have worship together. It's kind of a late morning worship because we're not able to do it earlier. It's too early in the morning for them. Then we have, either we go shopping or whatever after that, make lunch, and then in the afternoon, sometimes gardening, sometimes more schoolwork, piano lesson, because our teacher lives about 5 minutes away. It's really nice for piano. And then evening time, we try to have worship around 5 or 6 o'clock with our children. And then at the end, what is it, like getting ready for bed, having supper and all that. Try to have some meaningful time alone before I start my work. Sometimes that works out, sometimes,
Okay. One more question.
Real
quick.
question.
So that's kind of like a day in your life and during the week. So now, like when either Sunday or Monday is coming up, so you look at many days in that week are going to be similar to this day you just described. So when Sunday, Monday comes along, when you look at the week, you just think generally as this is what your program is going to be like. Do you think of any other thoughts about the following week, or you just kind of focus for that week?
I'm a phlegmatic person. I have a really hard time scheduling and putting dates on calendars, and so I'm the kind of person, okay, I wake up in the morning, okay, whatever happens, happens. I'm not that scheduled. I fly by the seat of my pants most of the time. My wife is the one that keeps me scheduled. So I'm sorry to say that, but that's just me.
Okay.
But I have in my mind, and especially Fridays, but even during the week, okay, what are we going to do to get ourselves ready for Sabbath? Mostly happens on Friday, but because I've definitely, maybe we don't teach that day. We take all of our schedule out. We've done that before, especially when it gets dark for them and for us on Friday, and then we do Friday just clean up and get prepared for Sabbath. It doesn't always work that way because other things happen, but I'd hope that we could do that even from Sunday on to prepare ourselves for Sabbath.
Okay. Next, I'm going to pick out somebody because I want to kind of know what goes in. I'm trying to find like different generations, and so go ahead, Regine.
I've been studying some things with the government, and the people I've connected with, they go into the UCC laws and things like that. It's not coming through right?
Just a little closer. Just put a little closer to your
Okay.
mouth.
I've been studying things about the government, UCC regulations and so forth. Group I've connected with, they're just amazing people. They say, well, this one is written this way because the scripture says this. And the bottom line of all of it is no matter what evil things they try to do in the government, there's constraints on them. everything that is in place, God has a stop for them. It's just amazing how they're just pulling the scriptures into what we're dealing with in commerce, in even around the world, and the laws that are being passed now, and how they get, some of these are getting stopped. And one of the highest government things that got into is called DTC. I forget the whole wording for it, but it has something to do with our Social Security and a lot of financial things. And right in the questionnaire to join this, to learn more about it, is the scriptures. I was just absolutely boiled over. And so I called one of the people in this, because he's the guy that sent me to the group anyway, and he's the one that's helping me deal with my infections. And he has said to me in the past, well, Rajeen, you don't need to be a Christian, do you? And I said, what are you talking about? And he has been through the Baptist church. And he talks, last night he got to talking about how the pastor he knows all his life, just every sermon was about give money, give money, give money. And he'd go home and look at the scriptures and he'd say, he's not even connecting it right. He's not even interpreting the Bible right. And I said, that's true. And he got into a little bit. And I said, you're talking about the Schofield Bible. And I said, that thing's just a mess all over the place in the commentaries on it and everything. He says, you can't, that's not God. He said, well, Rajeen, you're right. And I'm kind of bringing him in, but he has a terrible time with a lot of his kids. They went to the schools and they got involved in drugs and things like that. One of his kids is in jail long term. And he tried to save his kid. He sent the kid to a wilderness camp away from people and his circle of people.
So my question is, I know, I mean, I like you, but so you like researching as part of your day. You like to look into studying things, what's going on in the environment,
but you don't know the power of God. Mm-hmm. When you look at, see, actually realize that these books, there's a set of books that are 30 of them are all UCC laws, designed in 1928, somewhere around in there. They connect every single one of them with the scriptures. It's amazing.
And in your daily life, do you get a chance to go out, or do you have like, or maybe shopping or whatever to
not very often. I'm just my doctor moved away, so I haven't been able to get treated. I haven't been able to find somebody that put a finger on what's going on, and outside of the one doctor. And so my feet are starting to hurt again, and different things. So I'm not doing a whole lot of out in the world stuff.
Okay.
I'm doing more things online and by phone.
All right, I'll take one more testimony real quick, and then we'll get into, but I think this is going to be all connected, so you'll see. Anyway, I want to talk to June a little bit. Yes. Because you fit a generation that I don't know what goes on in their life. And so just give me just a quick rundown of, what are the priorities in your day, and do you have some alone time, and do you have some hobbies that you like to do, or you have like a TV show that you like to kind of watch, or a book that you read? And just give me just a quick rundown, maybe a 2-minute rundown of what goes on in your life.
Well, when you get to my age, you don't usually have too many schedules. But when we get up in the morning, we usually get up late because we don't have to get up early. And sometimes we'll have worship, sometimes we don't. We forget it. But I have been reading a lot of books just any time during the day when I sit down, I pick up a book and read something in it. And we go to the grocery store when we have to. We do our laundry when we have to. We clean the house when we have to. And we don't do a whole lot of anything. And my hobby is making quilts, and so I've been working on quilts. My quilt house got holes in the roof and ruined some fabric, ruined some quilts because it got rained in before I could get it repaired. And it's repaired now at the cost of $1,000, so I got it done. But I haven't moved all my stuff back out there yet. It's still in the house where I have been sewing. That's basically my life.
Okay.
Not very exciting.
Good. Okay. Let's get into the lesson. I just want to read the intro.
Excuse me, she's reading great controversy to us, and we sit and read various books together.
Okay, awesome. One of my, you can say, adopted grandmas. I mean, I was just a little kid, so you don't know this person at all. So anyway, and this is in a different state. Her hobbies, I mean, she was a dear old lady, and grew up in the church, raised her children in the church. She just loved to make cinnamon rolls. I mean, and her garden was her big part of her life. And then she had a personal hobby. She used to love to read the National Enquirer. And so she would have a whole stack that she made sure that she kept up with the latest version of what the Hollywood stars were doing and all that kind of stuff. And I found that rather curious. And there was always a lot of pictures. And so after she worked us digging the garden, when we come in for lemonade or whatever, or sometimes she would go run errands, with the chauffeur and all that. And so we had to take care of the house. So then me and my little brother would be going through this National Enquirer, seeing all these pictures and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we just love pictures, and so anyway, we were being kind of influenced by that aspect of the world. I
had all three of my grandsons raised kind of at our house because of problems in their own homes. So my grandchildren feel like my own children. And my youngest one, now he comes to church with us once in a while. That's Connor, and he's big and tall and thin. And he's a good kid, but he has a good job. And we have to fix a good meal for supper so that he will have something good to eat because he's worked hard all day. So it keeps us busy. Yeah.
Right. I'll read the intro to their lesson. It says, perhaps, the title is, what have they seen in your house? Perhaps we have reached a stage when, thanks be to the Lord, our lives are, at least for now, going well. Family is fine, work is fine, health and finances are too, or maybe not. Maybe your home for now is pain, turmoil. Either way, when someone comes to visit your home, like the emissaries from Babylon who visited King Hezekiah, what answer could be given to the question that the prophet Isaiah later asked the king? What have they seen in your house? What have people seen in your house? What have heavenly angels seen? What kind of spirit permeates our residences? Can one smell the scent of prayer? Is there kindness, generosity, love, or tension, anger, resentfulness, bitterness, and discord? Will someone who's there walk away thinking Jesus is in this home? These are important questions for us, all of us, to ask ourselves regarding the kind of home that we have created. So this week we will look at some of the issues that can make for a wonderful home life, in this day and age that we live. And I'd like to take it a little deeper and not so much focus on what the lesson is saying right here, but kind of focus on what's going on in our life. Do we have a hand there? Okay.
Just one thought there. Do they see our faith? Not so much in preaching, but I think in our whole life situation, our faith should show up.
Okay. So this year, God has really been challenging me about who I am and what do people see in me. And going through a lot of struggles, I've been challenged with that question. What do people see in me, and what are my priorities, and where is my focus every day? Jim?
When I was teaching at Chattanooga State, I got off on a topic in my chemistry class, some aspect, I forget what I was talking about. But anyhow, I made an impression upon one young fellow, because after class he came up and he says, "Are you a Christian?" What I had said at least had sparked some interest in him. And it was showing that I was believing in God.
So when people interact with you, it doesn't matter whether it's in the home. Okay, just say, who are the people that are closest to you in the house? What story, because when you're out with people, you are sharing a story of who you are, right? Maybe by the way you dress. And I can give an example of where I've talked to a number of friends, and we talk about different people, and then they said, several of my friends know an individual, and then they said, when we see this individual, we know that they have some issues. Then I'm saying to myself, how do they know that they're having issues? And where I work too, I mean, I came across a young man that I caddied with yesterday for the second time. And I did not know, like I told him up front, I said, when I first saw you, I mean, he's this tall. I said, my first impression, without knowing who you were, you look like a gentle geek. I mean, he seemed to have a gentle spirit, but I said, a nerdy, gentle geek. And he said, and he frowned and looked at me, he said, why would you think that? Then I said, well, it's just the way you're quiet, but then you seem to have these big glasses that make you look like you're a bookworm. He said, well, I'm studying to be an educator. He's in college, and he says, but you hardly know me. But I said, well, but you are a good person. He said, well, yeah, I think I am a good person. And so, but then how, impressions, how do people know what you are? But then when they get to know you better, what kind of witness are you?
This morning we had our neighbor. We were preparing to come to church, and our neighbor, she would walk her dog every day. She would pass by our house every morning, and the dog would just bark. She has 2 dogs. They're very scary dogs. Every time I see her dogs, I would run away. But this morning, we greeted her, "Good morning." And she just, I don't know, snob, is that the right word? And I was like, okay, I think she doesn't have a good morning. But my husband was the one who greeted. But there's another neighbor, and he would mow everybody's lawn. They live next to each other. He would mow everybody's lawn for free. And he asked us, "You don't have to pay us, just pray for my wife." And I was like, how does he know that we like to pray? I think you're right. Like, people would observe you. And I don't know, I didn't tell him we like to pray, but he just say, "Pray for my wife," that's all. So you don't have to say anything, just show Christ's way, and people would see Christ in you.
Okay, that leads me into this question. What are the things in our daily life that alert people who you are? Give me some examples of what things do people notice in your life. I don't care whether we wear suits and when we walk into the store, they know that we're some church official, or whether we're in tattered jeans. But anyway, when people interact with you, what are some of the things that make people form an opinion of who you are? Give me some examples.
The way you smile.
Smiling? Okay. I have a hand here.
Yes, where I live, the back of my home is backed up to a small subdivision, and I've been I've been getting to know one of the neighbors, and they just had a new baby, and I stopped by there to take them some cookies from my son's bakery, and I didn't know that they had had the baby. That was a couple of weeks ago. So I got a gift, and I stopped by this morning on my way to church, and I took them a gift, and they have brought me gifts, so we, exchange gifts sometimes. And a couple of times when I've taken them baking goods from the bakery, I have given them sharing book. And I don't know if they've read it, but, I just pray about that. And so anymore, when I go over there, she gives me a big hug, and she asked me this morning, she said, do our chickens, although they live in a subdivision, she and her neighbor, they have chickens, and they both asked me, do our chickens bother you? Do you hear them? I said, no, when I'm inside, I never hear them. And, so we're starting to bond and get a relationship, and they're a young couple. They now have 3 small children. And I just didn't, they used to didn't invite me in, but they do now. And I just never seem to have time to, sit down. And I know they're busy with their little children. And so I just enjoy going over and seeing them and seeing the smiles on their little children's faces when I take them cookies.
Okay. So we have smiling, and then taking, being friendly with your neighbors, and maybe taking cookies, doing some acts of kindness. Go ahead.
When I was about 18 or 19 years old, we lived in South Lancaster, Massachusetts, and Clinton was the town right next to it, and I'd go shopping. And it's true, it's your smile, it's the expression on your face, sometimes the way you walk, because I was walking down the street, and deciding which store to go into, and this woman stopped me, and she says, "You're a Seventh-day Adventist, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "How did you know?" And she said, "Well, it's just the expression on your face. You have a joyful, peaceful look on your face, and just the way you walked." She said, "It's different than other young people that I see, on the street." And so just the expression on your face, is people observe you. And you may not know they observe you, but they do.
Okay, Dick?
Years ago, I was in Atlantic City for a scientific meeting, but on Wednesday night I went to the prayer meeting in Pleasantville, one of the suburbs there. When I stepped off the bus there, a woman came across, I don't know if she came across the street, she came toward me anyway, said, "Are you a Seventh-day Adventist?" Just stepped off the bus in a town I had never been in before. But I had my Bible in my hand. It turned out she was the Dorcas leader in that church.
Okay, Martha?
I do my fabric shopping at Hobby Lobby. And one day, the woman at the counter, she said her father-in-law had told her that her mother was not in heaven. My mother was a good person, and I know she's in heaven. And so she asked me what I thought, and I told her that in the Bible it tells experiences about people who die, but they didn't go to heaven. I said one of them was a man who Jesus raised to life. He wasn't in heaven. And she said, I never heard that before. And so that I knew that her father-in-law was a Seventh-day Adventist. And I gave her different things on State of the Dead. And then I let her make up her own mind. But then one day in church here, I got a magazine that had Bible studies in it, and I gave it to her. And when she came across the study on the Sabbath, she knew what I was. And she avoided me. And then as time passed by, and I was the same to her, she now is the same to me as she was before she knew that I was an Adventist.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The humility people see in you give you out the kind of personality you are.
Right.
While some people might try to be hostile with you, but when they see the persistence in your relationship with them, at the end of the day, they will try and relate with you because of that humility.
I will just give you, because we just only have 5 more minutes, I'll just give you some things that I've been focusing on in my personal life, because this lesson holds very dear to me because it hits very close to home. Yesterday, well, one thing, when I used to work as a waiter in the restaurant business, and the motto amongst us was, we knew Seventh-day Adventists. We don't want a Seventh-day Adventist and Christians in general sitting on our tables. Because in this restaurant, we just knew that they're the worst tippers and they're the biggest complainers. And how many times we've had to send food home because the tomato was not set right on the plate, and it's like, and we'd go back and forth for water, back and forth, and then they were kind of rude. And so my non-Adventist waiters also, I learned this from them. And then when I had the experience of Christians and of course, because I live in not too far from a Seventh-day Adventist community, come and sit at my table, I knew what to expect. I would brace myself for the smallest tip and the most complaints. And so, okay, Marie, real quick.
Oh, I was just going to say your kindness, When the children were little, I was driving, and this lady hit me from the back. And so I got out, and my first instinct was to ask the other party if they were okay. So she was there just, waiting for me to, cuss at her. So I came out to her and I said, is everybody okay? And she looks at me, she says, you're Christian, right? And I said, why do you say that? She says, well, because I was waiting for you to yell at me and start cussing at me. She says, but you come over here to ask me if we're okay when I was the one to hit you. And I said, well, the most important thing is we're all okay. And she kept telling me, you're Christian, you're Christian. And so we just exchanged numbers, and she paid for the damage, and she gave me a hug, and she says, thanks for not, yelling at me, because she hit me from the back. So I think it's our kindness that they can see that too.
I would like for us to, as we go from today, to think about what is your purpose in life? What are we here for? So every time in the morning when you say your prayers, pray to God and ask, what is my purpose here in life? What is my mission? Who do I represent? And then when that is the foundation of in your prayer, ask God to reflect that and to not forget the larger mission that you have in life. Because when I was talking to a cousin of mine just a few days ago, I said we were reflecting on our childhood. I said the previous generation, that means our parents, did not prepare us to live life intentionally of who our mission and our purpose was. And in fact, they did not even prepare us. If Jesus came in our lifetime, they certainly did not prepare us to be ready to meet Jesus. Then the other question we explored was, what are we doing to my nieces and nephews? How can we not repeat what our parents did not do for us? And how can we prepare our youth, our nieces and nephews now to live life intentionally, inspire them to their purpose? And so this is how, when I come into my day and focus, I'm going to be interacting with my nieces and nephews. What can I do to prepare them for their mission in life? And how can I prepare them to help their children to keep on this trend going of purpose and mission and who they're representing? And so that would be my, I just want to read a few verses here. Let us turn, in closing, Matthew 5, 13 to 16. Matthew 5, 13 through 16. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing, but to be thrown out and trampled under the foot by men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. That's who we are. We're supposed to be the light. And so when we get impatient and all that, we're not being a light. And so when we have this as a foundation, when we go to the store, if our wife does not get, or our husband doesn't do something that really irritates us, we will remember that we ask God to be a light. The next thing I want to look at is Ephesians 5. Ephesians chapter 5. 1 through 10. Ephesians 5, 1 through 10. Therefore, be followers of God as dear children, and walk in the love, as Christ also has loved us and given himself for us, as an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling aroma. But fornication and all uncleanliness, covetousness, let it not even be named among you, as it is fitting for the saints, neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor coarse jesting, which are not fitting, but rather giving of thanks. For this you know, that no fornication, unclean person, nor covetous man, or idolater has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Let no one deceive you with vain and empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore, do not be partakers of them. For you were once in darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of the light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness, righteousness, and truth, proving what is acceptable to the Lord. So remember that you are children of the light. We are children of the light. So live like children of the light. And I want to share just I'm in my work. Every morning I'm asking God for me to be intentional in my walk. How can I reflect Christ? And yesterday I caddied for some people from New York, and one of these people I had never met before. But after the end of the round, they said, "I really enjoyed our time together. I hope we meet again." And then the member who was from Atlanta, he said, "Yeah, I always ask for Donnie when I come into town and bring a group. He's the one I ask for." And so where is that testimony coming from? It's because as I pray every morning, I pray that I am a light. And I just want to read something here. Now this gentleman, he's from the older generation. And a week ago, I just shared how the Lord was testing me in making right decisions. And so when I shared that little testimony, he said, "I was so blessed." He said, "I needed to hear that word from you." And he says, Amen, brother. Thank you for you are allowing the Lord to mold you. I am blessed to call you friend and learn with you. And he's from Knoxville, this guy. Then there's another gentleman. He was just a young college student about 10, 15 years ago. And so now he's in his 30s, and he's left the golf course for about 10 years. But he's kept in touch with me. And he texted me, he said, I sent a prayer for you tonight, thanking God that God would richly bless you with peace, strength, and wisdom, and that you would continue to walk humbly and obediently with Him. God is working in your life, and through you, He is a witness to me. Then a new caddy, he's only like in his 20s, he just started, he's brand new at the golf course. He said, I heard that you had asked for me. He said, and I appreciate that so much. He said, I'm your pupil, and you took me under your wing. Hope your day is amazing, and may God bless you today. And this is I just got to know him this past week. And then he says, I'm so thankful that I'm able to be with you and just learn, because I trained him, as I was interacting with the different members. And I told him, I said, you remember to do your job, but just remember that you need to care for these people that you're caddying for. And I just shared these things. And so I pray that our lives are becoming a living witness every day. Because I don't care whether we've missed, if you're the older generation and did not train the younger generation, you can do it now. Your personal time with the Lord in the morning will challenge you to be a light and to make the remaining use of your years to be a mentor. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, I just thank you and praise you for the Heavenly Father that you are. And I don't care how old we are here, but we are all your children. Continue to train us and continue to empower us to reflect you, so that we can inspire others to connect and find a relationship with you. We thank you and praise you for who you are. In Jesus' name, amen.
Your experience in meeting every different kind of people almost has done a lot for you.
Good morning, everyone. This is the time for the Health Minute, or Health 5-Minute Health. And I'm going to, before we show you something, I was asked to start it, and you've been sitting a while. Why don't you take the moment to stand and get some blood circulating in your legs and your body, because that helps us to think. And so go ahead and stand and stretch out your arms and get some good deep breaths. Okay, yeah. Okay, very good, very good. All right. So last Sunday we shared some really good information with folks on how to reverse and prevent diabetes. And I would say that so many of us, is more than we know, who are affected with diabetes and or pre-diabetes. And Becky and I watched this Diabetes Undone seminar, And we're going to, more on that later, but we want to make available to the church. I'll tell you more about that. But right now, here's a short little introduction to the whole series of Diabetes Undone, and we're going to show that to you at this time.
Have you ever had a major paradigm shift? Your entire life you held a certain belief or opinion, only to discover it just wasn't true? A paradigm shift occurs when the usual and accepted way of doing or thinking about something changes completely. It's a radical 180-degree turn from one way of thinking to another. When I was 24, I thought I was the healthiest person I knew. I was very athletic, I worked out regularly, played basketball, ate a vegetarian diet, and tried my best to make good health choices. I was studying nutrition at the time and felt like I had my health under control. Until the day I got my major paradigm shift. My university was offering free held a certain belief or that I had an ideal level. Discover it. Have you ever had a major paradigm shift? Your entire life you held a certain belief or opinion, only to discover it just wasn't true? Have you ever had a major paradigm shift? Have you ever had a major paradigm shift?
But the paradigm shift that he's describing is the whole change, a change of thinking. Have you ever heard of people saying, or doctors saying, once you have diabetes, you will always have diabetes, and there's nothing you can do to prevent it. If you have type 2 diabetes, even you have it for the rest of your life, that's that concept. Well, this series is saying that it doesn't have to be that way. By lifestyle, by the things that you do, the things that you eat, you don't have to have diabetes for the rest of your life if type 2 is the kind of diabetes you have. People who are type 1 can control it, but it can be changed. It can be changed, and we'll be sharing more information, but in a video that will work. This time it didn't quite work out, but nevertheless, this is all about hope, and diabetes affects so many of us so often, or pre-diabetes, and the things that we do. Last Sunday we shared how even getting up and just gentle walking for about anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes or more, 15, 20 or so, just walking, just gentle walking can help one's blood sugar. Concepts like what really drives insulin resistance, because that's the issue for especially type 2 diabetes, and it's so important. So as a pastor, I can just tell you that so many times I have felt like, oh, it's too bad that somebody's life their service for the Lord was cut short because of the way they're living. And I've thought, oh my, if somebody had been in a better state of health and they had paid better attention to their health, then maybe their service for God could continue. So I'm thankful that God is gracious and God is kind and God is compassionate and merciful. And that's one of the ways that He helps us, is by realizing that we can change our lives for the better. There's just a better way to live, and I'm thankful for that. So, well, the video didn't work out this time, but we will go on. We'll have a short break before we continue with our worship service.